We were talking about how Sense and Sensibility, the movie, may have had a longer version, uncut version that was maybe longer than the 2 hours, and that maybe even the book was a longer version. So I guess the book is the longest version of the movie from Jane Austen, but at the same time, maybe the longer version of Thoreau is the Thoreau journals. Would that be the uncut longer version? And we come to the romantic section, 1839. Thoreau fell in love, so we're talking about love now. Thoreau fell in love. The girl was Ellen Sewall, a charming 17-year-old from Sewall, Massachusetts, who was making a summer visit to Concord. He wrote in the journal, quote, "There is no remedy for love but to love more." You think that's true? There's no remedy for love but to love more. This same summer, he and his brother John made a boat trip on the Concord and Merrimack rivers, camping and exploring along the way. It was a delightful experience which would lead to the first of the two books Thoreau published during his lifetime. The journal he had left for this year was marked by an unusually large amount of youthful philosophizing. There are, for example, paragraphs headed Disappointment, The Poet, Friendship, Growth. He's a young, developing philosopher now. This would be pre-Walden. So he says, The Poet, March 3rd. He must be something more than natural, even supernatural. Do you think a poet needs to be supernatural? That just being natural is not enough. I would agree with that. If I just went to the woods and looked at the flowers and wrote poetry, I don't think it's good enough. Do you think you have to see inner flowers and see supernatural light and become a mystic? It would be trivial. I think you should try to equal Moana Rumi or somebody. Nature will not speak through, but along with him his voice will not proceed from her mist, but breathing on her will make her the expression of his thought. He then poetizes when he takes a fact out of nature into spirit. He speaks without reference to time or place. His thought is one world, hers another. Hers another. Who's her? Nature. Okay, that's not the girlfriend. He is another nature, nature's brother. Are we supposed to be nature's brother? I guess you could be. I could be brother to the planet Earth. I'm the planet Earth's brother. The nature's brother. If we were brothers to the Earth, why would we wreck the Earth? Kindly offices do they perform for one another. Each publishes the other's truth. It's interesting that books are published on paper. Basically, the trees do the publishing. Do you think trees publish books? Morning, April 4th. The atmosphere of morning gives a healthy hue to our prospects. Do you think that morning has got a healthy hue to it? Morning has usually got a fresh start feeling to it. Disease is a sluggard that overtakes, never encounters us. We have the start each day and may fairly distance him before the dew is off. But if we recline in the bowers of noon, we will come up with us. He will come up with us after all. The morning dew breeds no cold. He's saying it's not cold in the dew, but it's warm. We enjoy a diurnal reprieve in the beginning of each day's creation. In the morning, we do not believe in expediency. We will start afresh and have no patching, no temporary fixtures. The afternoon man has no interest in the past. His eye is divided. He sees indifferently well either way. Now we have the afternoon man. Drifting in a sultry day on the sluggish waters of the pond. I almost cease to live and begin to be. The boatman stretched on the deck of his craft and dallying with the noon would be apt an emblem of eternity for me as the serpent with his tail in his mouth. I am never so prone to lose my identity. I am dissolved in the haze. Disappointment. April 7, Sunday. The tediousness and detail of execution never occur to the genius projecting. It always antedates the completion of its work. It condescends to give time a few hours to do its bidding in. Resolve. Most have sufficient contempt for what is mean to resolve, that they will abstain from it, and a few virtue enough to abide by the resolution. But not often does one attain to such lofty contempt as to require no resolution to be made. God, did you understand that? Most have sufficient contempt for what is mean to resolve that they will abstain from it, and a few virtue enough to abide by the resolution, but not often does one attain to such lofty contempt as to require no resolution to be made. I didn't say I would comprehend the reading, I just said I would read it. Society, April 14th. There is a terra firma in society as well as in geography. Some whose ports you may make by deep reckoning in all weather. All the rest are but floating and fabulous Atlantides, which sometimes skirt the western horizon of our intercourse. They impose only on seasick mariners who have put into some Canary island on the frontiers of society. Circumstances, April 24th. Why should we concern ourselves with what has happened to us and the unaccountable fickleness of events, and not rather with how we have happened to the universe? It has demeaned itself in consequence. Let us record in each case the judgment we have awarded to circumstances. Here he says, why should we concern ourselves with what has happened to us? Why am I concerned about it? It says, why should we concern ourselves with what has happened to us? Are you concerned about what has happened to you? I've been overly concerned about what happened to me. Well, he said to have presence of mind and to be present in Walden, right? Live in the present moment. Acquaintance. Cheap persons will stand upon ceremony. Cheap persons, because there is no other ground. But to the great of the earth, we need no introduction, nor do they need any to us. Kingdoms of the earth, April 25th. If we see the reality in things, of what moment is the superficial and apparent? Take the earth and all the interest it has known. What are they? Because we deep surmise that pieces and scatters them. The independent beggar disposes of all with one hearty significant curse by the roadside. 'Tis true they are not worth a tinkerer's dam. Do I understand that one? Do I not have enough coffee to understand this? The kingdoms of the earth, if we see the reality in things, of what moment is the superficial and apparent? Take the earth and all the interest it has known. What are they beside one deep surmise that pierces and scatters them? Question mark. The independent beggar disposes of all with one hearty, significant curse by the roadside. 'Tis true they are not worth a tinkerer's dam. I don't understand it. Well, my job is not understanding, it's just reading. I'm just like that corporate lawyer who worked at Skadden Arps. He said, "Oh, I'm just a low two-bit scribe here. I'm like a scribe. I'm just a two-bit reader. My job is not literary criticism." Picture. April 30th of some illuminated pictures which I saw last evening. One representing the plain of Babylon with only a heap of brick dust in the center and an uninterrupted horizon bounding the desert struck me most. I would see painted a boundless expanse of desert, prairie, or sea without other object than the horizon, the heavens and the earth, the first and the last painting. Where is the artist who shall undertake it? This is great stuff to put you to sleep. This is for, though it's a morning reading, it could be considered a bedtime reading. May 11th. The farmer keeps pace with his crops and the revolutions of the seasons. But the merchant, with the fluctuations of trade, observe how differently they walk in the streets. He said you can compare the farmer to the merchant, that they literally walk differently. Hmm. Vice and Virtue, May 11th, May 16th. Virtue is the very heart and lungs of vice. It cannot stand up, but it lean on virtue. You wouldn't have vice unless you had virtue. Because how do you define vice? If vice is the lack of virtue, it would never occur. If you didn't have virtue, you couldn't have vice. Who has not admired the 12 labors? And yet nobody thinks if Hercules has sufficient motive for racking his bones to that degree, men are not so much virtuous as patrons of virtue. Everyone knows that it is easier to deal with the real possessor of a thing than the temporary guardian of it. My attic, June 4th. I sit here this 4th of June, looking out on man and nature from this that I call my perspective window, through which all things are seen in their true relations. This is my upper empire, bounded by 4 walls, vis-a-vis 3 of boards whitewashed, facing the north, west, and south, respectively, and the 4th of plaster, likewise yellow-washed, fronting the sunrise, to say nothing of the purlias and outlying provinces, unexplored as yet but by rats. My attic. The words of some man are thrown forcibly against you and adhere like burrs. Okay. And Rencounter, June 22nd, Saturday. I have within the last few days come in contact with a pure, uncompromising spirit that is somewhere wandering in the atmosphere, but settles not positively anywhere. Some persons carry with them the air and conviction of virtue, though they themselves are unconscious of it and are even backward to appreciate it in others, since it is impossible not to love. Still is the loveliness, as it were, independent of them, so that you seem not to lose it when they are absent, for when they are near, it is like an invisible presence which attends you. That virtue we appreciate is as much ours as another's. We see so much only as we possess. Do you have to possess virtue to see it? July 25th. There is no remedy for love but to love more. August 31. While I write here, I hear the foxes trotting about me over the dead leaves, and now gently over the grass, as if not to disturb the dew which is falling. Why should we not cultivate neighborly relations with the foxes? As if to improve upon our seemly advances, comes one to greet us nose-wise under our tent curtain, nor do we rudely repulse him. Is man powder, and the fox flint and steel? Has not the time come when men and foxes shall lie down together? Hist. Here the musk squash by the boat is taking toll of potatoes and melons. Is not this the age of a community of goods? His presumption kindles in me a brotherly feeling. Nevertheless, I get up to reconnoitre and tread steadily along the shore to make acquaintance with him. But on the riverside I can see only the stars reflected in the water, and now by some ripple ruffling the disk of a star I discover him. It's a yeti, yet, but the yeti still have yeti, yet I haven't come yet to yeti, yet, yeti, come yet to the end, so I have yeti. The wise rest. I was just trying to get some rest with my tea. The wise rest, September 17th. Nature never makes haste. Her systems resolve at an even pace. The bud swells imperceptibly without hurry or confusion, as though the short spring days were an eternity. All her operations seem separately for the time and single object for which all things tarry. Why then should man hasten as if anything less than eternity were allotted for the least deed? Why do men hasten? Let him consume never so many eons, so that he go about the meanest task well, though it be but the paring of his nails, if the setting sun seems to hurry him, to improve the day while it lasts. The chant of the crickets fails not to reassure him, even measured as of old, teaching him to take his own time henceforth forever. The wise man is restful, never restless or impatient. He each moment abides there where he is, as some walkers actually rest the whole body at each step, while others never relax the muscles of the leg till the accumulated fatigue obliges them to stop short. As the wise is not anxious that time await for him, neither does he wait for it. Doesn't wait for time. I'm not going to rush through this section. No need to hasten through the reading. Nature never makes haste. Her systems revolve at an even pace. The bud swells imperceptibly without hurry or confusion, as though the short spring days were an eternity. All our operations seem separately for the time the single object for which all things tarry. Why then should man hasten as if anything less than an eternity were allotted for the least deed? Let him consume never so many eons, so that he go about the meanest task well, though it be but the pattering of his nails, if the setting sun seems to hurry him to improve the day. While at last the chant of the crickets fails not to reassure him, even measured as of old in teaching him to take his own time henceforth forever. The wise man is restful. Does that mean he just sits in meditation? The wise man is restful, never restless or impatient. He each moment abides there where he is, as some walkers actually rest the whole body at each step. It's like doing Tai Chi or something, as if without stress, or doing action without actionless action, while others never relax the muscles of the leg till the accumulated fatigue obliges them to stop short. As the wise, uh, as the wise is not anxious that time wait for him, neither does he wait for it. No, that's good. I think we covered that twice. Aeschylus, November 5th. Where's the love part? This was like a bad, this is misadvertising. There's no love in here. There was one man lived his own healthy attic life in those days. The words that have come down to us evidence that the reader was a seer in his day and generation. At this day they owe nothing to the dramatic form, nothing to stage machinery, and the fact that they were spoken under these and those circumstances. All display of art is the gratification of a sensuous taste is silently passed by to come at the least particle of absolute and genuine thought they contain. The reader will be disappointed, however, who looks for traits of a rare wisdom or eloquence, and will have to solace himself, for the most part, with the poet's humanity and what it was in him to say. He will discover that, like every genius, he is a solitary liver and worker in his day. We are accustomed to say that the common sense of this age belonged to the seer of the last, as if time gave him any vantage ground, but not so. I see not but genius must ever take an equal start, and all the generations of man are virtually at a standstill for it to come and consider of them. Common sense is not so familiar with any truth, but genius will represent it in a strange light to it. Let the seer bring down his broad eye to the most stale and trivial fact, and he will make you believe it a new planet in the sky. As to criticism, man has never to make allowance to man. There is naught to excuse, naught to bear in mind. All the past is here, present to be tried. Let it approve itself if it can. The past can be tried out. All the past is here, present to be tried. Let it approve itself if it can. So we could try out reading Aeschylus and see if can prove itself to be good. Growth. We are not apt to remember that we grow. It is curious to reflect how the maiden waited patiently, confiding as the unripe haustonia of the meadow, for the slow-moving years to work their will with her. Perfect and ripe in her, like it to be fanned by the wind, watered by the rain, and receive her education at the hands of nature. These young buds of manhood in the streets are like buttercups in the meadow, surrounded to nature as they. November 7th. I was not aware till today of a rising and risen generation. Children appear to me as raw as the fresh fungi on a fence rail. By what degrees of consanguinity? We have to put this in our dictionary, word lookup book. On my Flipboard, I have looked up words. Is this succulent and rank growing slip of mankind related to me? What is it but another urba, ranging all the kingdoms of nature, drawing in sustenance by 1,000 roots and fibers from all soils? Regret. November 13th. Make the most of your regrets. Never smother your sorrow. I'm supposed to make the most of my regrets. But tend and cherish it till it come to have a separate and integral interest. To regret deeply is to live afresh. Is he writing maxims or quotations? Is he writing quotations? By so doing, you will be astonished to find yourself restored once more to all your emoluments. EMOLUMENTS. I thought we weren't supposed to obsess about the past. Didn't he say the regrets? Why should we concern ourselves with what has happened to us? Then he says, make the most of your regrets. To regret deeply is to live afresh. Well, I can't comprehend it. I can only read it. I don't know if I'm going to regret reading it. Despondency. November 14th. There is nowhere any apology for despondency. You shouldn't be despondent. There's no apology for despondency. Always there is life which, rightly lived, implies a divine satisfaction. So you have to have divine satisfaction. Always. That means every single day. You can't be despondent. I am soothed by the raindrops on the doorsill, every global that pitches thus confidently from the eaves to the ground in my life insurance. His life insurance is just raindrops. Disease and a raindrop cannot coexist. The east wind is not itself consumptive, but has enjoyed a rare health from of old. If a fork or brand stand erect, good is portended by it. They are the warrant of universal innocence. Was it said that sadness has no room in a wise man's heart? Hafez. It's wrong to be sad. There's no apology for despondency. There is nowhere any apology for despondency. Always there is life which, rightly lived, implies a divine satisfaction. That's worth reading. We could have the highly more selected readings from the. I could do this more further selections of selected readings of Thoreau from selected readings, further selected down even further to shortened from 7,000 pages to how many pages? From 7,000 to 70. The 70 selected pages of Thoreau's journals. Farewell. November 19. Light-hearted, thoughtless, shall I take my way when I to thee this being have resigned, while knowing where upon a future day with usurper's craft more than myself to find. November 29th. Many brave men have their pen, thanked fortune, but I shall never grow brave by comparison. When I remember myself, I shall forget them. Bravery. December 2nd. A rare landscape immediately suggests a suitable inhabitant, whose breath shall be its wind, whose moods its season, to whom it will always be fair, to be shaped and worried and not as sincere as nature does not become one whose nature is as steadfast as she. We do all stand in the front ranks of the battle every moment of our lives. Where there is a brave man, there is the thickest of the fight. There the post of honor, not he who procures a substitute to go to Florida is exempt from service. He gathers his laurels in another field. Waterloo is not the only battleground, and as many and fatal guns are pointed at my breast now as are contained in the English arsenals. Well, we finished reading 1839, which says Thoreau fell in love, but there isn't much about love. Thoreau wasn't that much in love, because there is no remedy for love but to love more. He was supposed to love more. Though I don't know who he proposed to. He and his brother both proposed to the same woman, but I can't remember. Could have been her, I guess. There's not much in the journal. He says, there is no remedy for love but to love more. And he says, goodness. He says, such it is impossible not to love, still is their loveliness, as it were, independent of them, so that they seem not to lose it when they are absent, for when they are near it, it like an invisible presence which attends you. My goodness. Like I said, not too much about love. This was supposed to be a romantic reading. So that may have been fake Thoreau. We went through 1839 in the selected journals. So if you want to read more, you could get the unselected, the complete journals. And this is supposed to have been more complete than Walden. But the most complete is the complete journals, I guess. So. But I'm going to do even shorter selections. So most people just do Instagram quotations.